And I did quote it from an article, Why You Should Read Fiction. It's an article written by Mark Manson, the one and only author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Yes, the #1 seller self-help book. The same author who wrote over 10 nonfiction books. Even your favorite nonfiction authors advise you to start reading fiction. I will. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inclusivity Unlocked 3 podcast. I'm Majid, and you might already got an idea of what today's episode is about. If you love novels, this video is for you. If you hate novels, this video is for you. And well, if you don't care about reading at all, this video is also for you, because today's episode I will try to convince you to care about reading, and for those who already do, to feel proud of themselves. And to make it more clear, not just any reading, but fiction reading. And you also might already got a glimpse of my views on nonfiction or self-help books, but I will start off by saying, yes, I used to be against self-help books. I thought they were cringy and not worthy of the time. Because I didn't want someone to tell me what to do. I didn't see a point in that. But that is before I actually did my research. And I spent 2 weeks reading about self-help books, and now I am 100% against them, and so should you. And here are the 6 reasons why self-help books are the worst format of books and why everybody needs to stop reading them. Everybody knows there's a line between self-help books and novels, and based on the few people I know who reads either one of the two sides don't mix. You either read mostly fiction or non-fiction / self-help books. And the 6 points I'm gonna give you are takes from each side to help make the vision more clear. So let's get into it. #1, and we are starting with a simple fact. Self-help books tells you how to live, novels let you practice living. Now, I do have some questions to reflect on. Notice how when a child lies, we don't simply tell them not to lie. Instead, we tell them a whole story about the consequences of lying. And notice how all religious scriptures are written as stories. And also notice how in the beginning of humanity, we always found a way to tell a story, whether it's drawings on walls or theatrical play on stage or words written on paper. See, us humans are always in desperate need to hear stories. It's like it's in our nature, because that's how we learn. And when you read a self-help book, it's like hearing an advice from a stranger. Do you know how annoying that can be? And how it will take you like 3 minutes to forget the whole advice? The advice can be good, of course, but us humans really prefer to experience the situation rather than just being told how to act in it. And that's why novel gets a point, because they actually put you in the situation. And although you would be in the situation through someone else's shoes, you are still in it. You're emotionally rehearsing for it. You are feeling the fear, the hope, the embarrassment, the love, the jealousy of it. And through that, you actually learn. And whether you would act the same way the fictional character did, or you would do the complete opposite, because now you know the situation and the point of view, so now you could act. And I do want to give you an example. In the very famous self-help book, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, it says, owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do. While, yes, this is a very good advice, it's very direct. It doesn't hold much emotions. It tells us exactly what we should do, which is to love ourselves. But now let's compare it to what Stephen Kowski has to say in his novel, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, when Charlie, the main character of the story, as young and innocent as he is, confused by his friend, a very amazing person, continues to stay in relationships that treats her badly. Then Charlie asks this question to his English teacher, in which he responds, "We accept the love we think we deserve." That's it. That's the entire answer. And as short and simple as it is, it hits so hard. because it doesn't explain the lesson. The reader, just like Charlie, realizes that the lack of self-worth shaped his friend's relationship. Instead of the book telling you to value yourself, you feel the consequences of not doing so. You see how the self-help book, while yes, it has the same advice, it only informs you, while the novel transformed it into a lesson, an emotional journey. Also, to note, please read The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's genuinely a masterpiece. And now, moving on to number 2, novels are basically empathy training. Now you are aware of the different actions and how to deal with them. Novels doesn't stop there. It also teaches you how to recognize emotions in people you never met. And that is, my friends, is something a self-help books often fails at. Because self-help books can become hyper-individualistic, your goals, your productivity, your healing, your success. But novels constantly interrupts that. They force you to ask, what does life feel like for someone else? And I saw this quote in an article online that says, I think storytelling in all of its forms is a cool hack that is designed to get us humans to think outside of our own narrow experience and consider other points of views. I had never considered the emotional realities of being African American in the US until I read Ellison's Invisible Man. I didn't have any respect for how relative most historical knowledge is until I read Tolstoy's War and Peace. And I didn't consider the non-romantic realities of war until I read Tom O'Brien's The Thing They Carried. I am a huge fan of this quote because of how relatable it is. And I did quote it from an article, Why You Should Read Fiction. It's an article written by Mark Manson, the one and only author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Yes, the #1 seller self-help book. The same author who wrote over 10 non-fiction books. Even your favorite non-fiction authors advise you to start reading fiction. I will again. Come on, let's go to point number 3. The most important thing novels can give us is not answers, it's the emotional complexity. One thing that you are sure you are gonna get out of a good novel is complexity. Because your self-help book often simplify human experiences into lessons. Do this, think positively, wake up at 5 a.m. But a novel would say, I close my eyes, things and people move around me, taking positions in obscure hierarchies, participating in systems I didn't know about and never would, a complex network of objects and concepts. You live through certain things before you understand them. You can't always take the analytic position. Do you see how human that sounded? The context of this line is, the protagonist, her name is Frances, is reflecting on how emotionally confusing experience resists reasons while they are happening. And throughout the novel, she constantly tries to observe herself from a distance. She's just like us readers. She's a critic, a philosopher, studying her own emotions instead of actually feeling them. And what makes this line so powerful is that how the author is attacking a very common habit, which is how people use intelligence as emotional self-defense. Now imagine if I told you this sentence alone. Imagine if I told you using intelligence as emotional self-defense is bad. Would you feel anything? Absolutely zero influence. And that is exactly what self-help books sound. They state the issue. They might give you an example too, but a novel will give you the real emotional experience. You live inside Frances' body and her way of coming up with this conclusion of intelligence being a self-defense over emotions. And that is how you understand the point thoroughly. The line is quoted from Conversation with Friends. It's a book by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is one of the best authors for novels with complex characters that, you know, a lot of people can relate to. And she's very honest in her writing, and I genuinely admire that very much. So go on and check her books too. And moving on to number 4, novels makes us feel less alone. This one sounds a bit cheesy, I agree, and a lot might not take it seriously, which is fair, but let's look at it this way. One of the reasons why people remember novels for decades is because of the characters and how they become emotional companions. Now, go on the streets and ask strangers from all ages who Harry Potter is, the majority would answer you, oh, it's the wizard kid, or magic would be a keyword. But go on and ask them who James Clear is, and I bet you 99% of people wouldn't know. And that is because we felt more related to character with magic and a story that made people from all ages learn from than a person who is trying to pass their wisdom upon us. Another example that we need to focus on, because 2 weeks ago we had a Shakespeare festival here in Craiova, is none other than Romeo and Juliet, which I'm 100% sure every single person knows. Whether they read fiction or no, these characters are iconic. They become a symbol of love. And whether you hate them or like them, you would still know when someone is using them as an expression that is about love. So how come these characters become a symbol and we still remember them 500 years later? It is because of how strong the storytelling is, how emotionally touching the story became, how it kept us thinking how actions might take another turn if just one small thing changed, or how reckless love could be. On one of Jeffrey Archer's articles on top 12 best characters in fiction, he wrote, imagine that you don't know the ending of Romeo and Juliet and you started reading it. Would you want to know what happened? Of course you would. You would be on the edge of your seat. I love how he answered this because he is correct. And he continues, we know his stories so well that we forgot what an incredible storyteller he was. And by the way, that is also something that I need everybody to get. Sometimes we overlook stories simply because of how popular and known they are. People tend to hate on popular things for some reason. But to circle back on our main point, see how these characters accompanied us with their morality and their emotions all those years. Give me a self-help book about the same subject that did the same influence. Again, a self-help book can inspire you for some times, but novels can hunt you for decades. Point number 5, and I really love this one. Reading fiction might be one of the few experiences where we willingly surrender our ego for a long time. This one is pure philosophy, so let's break it down. Reading fiction most of the time puts you in insane situations, yet you keep reading. I can feel the tension and can be in it and go through it emotionally, but I am in a different body, I'm in a different mind. This isn't about me, this is about someone else. I think of how to deal with it based on how the character is thinking. Do you get how beneficial that is? It trains you to not always be the center of reality. It asks you to disappear into someone else's inner soul. This really helps when a friend asks for help on situation there, and instead of projecting how they should act in the situation from your seat, you are now trained to know that not everyone can deal with those situations like you. Not everyone has the ability to. And that leads us to the most important point in this episode. Point number 6. In the book Empathy and the Novel by Susan Keen, she says on page 148, the death of the novel would signal not only a literary crisis, but the crisis of empathy itself. I read that line so many times because it really struck me. Because maybe the danger of people not reading anymore isn't that it makes us less educated or less informed, but maybe it's actually that we become emotionally flatter. We become less patient with complexity, less curious about other lives, less capable of imagining scenarios we haven't personally experienced. And especially nowadays, with many mind intruders like Instagram and TikTok and, well, in some cases Facebook, and with all its doom scrolling that made our minds basically dead, the minds are severely exhausted and burnt out, and we know it's harmful, but it's way, way more harmful than we think. Because how do you think our minds can process one reel of a TikTok dance trend, followed by scientific information about bugs, followed by a funny video of a person falling, followed by people watching their houses crumble down because of missiles, followed by a cute video of a cat being playful, followed by a video of a protest where people ask for basic human rights? Now, can you imagine the amount of necessary and unnecessary information we are getting in just 1 minute of scrolling? How about 1 whole hour or 6 hours? Because of how fast we go from one video to another with the total different subject in both, We lost focus on things that requires our empathy, and we think the only reason why most of us find it hard to read nowadays is because our attention span is basically dead. And while yes, that is true, but then it's also because we lost the ability to care. We start a book and then wonder, why am I to read a story about someone fictional? But the word fictional here is only an excuse. We stop reading because we stopped caring about detailed stories of people, which led to killing empathy when hearing something good or bad happens to someone. Because now we can't identify bad and good because of how tangled they are in the reels we see. And that's how we lose humanity. But books help us overcome this. All you need to do is to sit down for 30 minutes a day and read a chapter of a book. And yes, you guessed it, it's gotta be in a format of a story. Go on and read about Charlie Gordon's story and experience what it feels like to desperately want it to be accepted simply because of disability in Flowers for Algernon book. Read about Elizabeth Zott and her constant struggles of being qualified yet looked down at in the workplace just because she's a woman in Lessons in Chemistry book. Read about Amir in The Kite Runner and experience the childhood of unprotected children who lost everything. Yes, books might not be able to change how the world works, but it can definitely fight to bring back empathy. You will be changed once you step in those novels. So go read books and see you in the next episode.